So Nesiv Shalom says, where does change come from? So there's a famous quote from Dave Ramsey, change comes when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Everybody says, I'm sick and tired of being fat, I'm sick and tired of smoking, I'm sick and tired of whatever. When you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, that's when change comes. As CHIZUK, Dave Ramsey says in Nesiv Shalom, that change comes when you start having this little rutzin, this little chukah, which we all have from time to time, coupled with, because it happens a lot of times, we just forget it, has to come together with the fact that I'm not going to be mashlim in matzavei haruchni k'may shehu. So I feel like I'm not going to be at peace with the way I am anymore. So it could be 5 years before that you got this thing. Let's say, for me, it's like, you should learn that, I should learn Daf Yomi, I should learn Daf Yomi, right? You have this little thing, and forget about it. When I have that noise, little chirping, that basko, right? And then it's coupled with the fact that I feel like I can't continue like this. Chaim ka'elu, einum chaim. That's the lashon he uses, that this life is not a life, and I'm not at peace with the way I am. That rutzin is what builds what he calls the kusta de chiyusa, the kernel of life that gives birth, so to speak, of the next stage of your growth, spiritual growth. So that spiritual growth comes from something. The Baal Shem Tov said that it says every single day there's a baskol that goes out and it says Shuvu banim shayvavim, come back my lost children. So he says, the Baal Shem Tov says, I don't understand. He asks, I don't understand. If there's a baskol coming out every day talking Shuvu banim shayvavim, how come we don't hear it? And if we don't hear it, then why does it come out every day? Nobody's hearing it. Says the Baal Shem Tov that we do hear it. Our spiritual antennas hear on a frequency that we may not even realize that we hear. But every hear of tshuva, every time that we think about becoming better and growing, comes from that baskol. Hashem is constantly sending out these signals, come home, I want you to come home. And a person has to have the antenna. And then a person gets the receiver, and he hears, I want to be better, I want to do something better, I'm ready to grow. And then he doesn't grow. And then finally he feels like, I gotta grow, and then he tries to grow, and then he falls. And then he has to grow again, just like every baby, and this is why Hashem made the Bria that way. How do they walk? Every single one of us, nobody got up and started walking. They walk, they fall, they get up again, they fall, they get up again. Finally, they can walk. And the same thing is with every single growth level from wherever you are to the next level. It starts with, first you're totally complacent, totally happy with the way life is, right? And then all of a sudden you start being unhappy with it, feeling uncomfortable. Maybe I should grow, maybe it's time. And I always watched it. I always watched it happen in Home Sweet Home. Like I said before, this kid told me, he said, Avi, I didn't wear tefillin in many years. Why is it bothering him now? Why is he mentioning it? Why is he talking, okay, you're not wearing tefillin, I'm wearing tefillin. It started to become a rutzin. It started to become a thing by him. And that kid, within a short time, ended up starting to put on tefillin. Not because I told him, oh, well, you better. I said, okay, Now, the same thing with all kinds of spiritual growth. It starts off as a little baskol, and it hits you, and then you're like, nah, I can't be, I don't think I'm not ready for it. And you try it, and you fall, and then you do it. And that's something I saw all the time. The guys would come over to me and would open up in Home Sweet Home. And they would start to tell me that they're disgusted with themselves. And I said, great! This mamish happened, I would say, kimat, but not really, with every single kid. I'm disgusted. I said, great! They said, well, why are you saying great? I said, because you weren't disgusted with yourself a month ago. You weren't disgusted with yourself a year ago. You grew. And the first part of realizing that you grew is that you become disgusted with yourself. So they would feel disgusting by something that didn't disgust them for years. I said, that's how you know you're better than that, because it hurts. I said, if you fall off the third step, it's not a big deal. If you fall off the sixth step, you feel, ow. As long as you feel disgusted by your behavior, that means that you don't belong here. That means that you grew on the inside, and now you're disgusted with your behavior. So that's not really who you are. You're really up here. Now, you're going to start to fight this behavior and change, which they did. It was amazing when they would just change in front of my eyes. And I didn't see the change as much because I used to see them all the time. The weekly volunteers, I had always, every Monday night, every Tuesday night, was a separate group. And they told me, like, when you just see them every Monday night, the first week, these kids are angry, resentful, they don't untrusting, you know. And by the 4th week, the 6th week, the 8th week, they say, like, every week we see change. They're relaxed, they're calm. All of a sudden, like, you know, you're in his space, and then you can hug him, and then you can sing with him, and then he's not so allergic to your touch like he used to. Everything changes. They melted in a matter of months in front of my eyes. And then I have documents, I have diaries of this. I used to keep so much information. Like 6 months after the kid moved in, he closed his Facebook account. And in those days, and now also, but in those days, it was like the biggest thing that closed his Facebook account. Amazing, right? Kid I got a kosher phone after like 8 months. You know, it's like, wow, the growth that they had. One kid, his friends brought him a laptop, a beautiful, shiny laptop for his birthday. And he took a hammer and he smashed it to smithereens. I wrote about that story. But why? I said, why don't you sell it? He said, no. I know what that laptop can do to me, and I wanted to send a message to the Satan who sent it in my life. And I smashed it to smithereens. It shouldn't hurt me or anybody. Because he knew what bad stuff that he can do on there. I mean, Gedolim. I mean, like B'makom Shval Tshuva Eimin and Tzaddik Gechel Lamed. The same kids, you look at the pictures a year later, you see the way they left, and Baruch Hashem. So that's where change happens. And I would say, if you feel disgusted by your actions, it's a raya that you're not a lowlife. Because the lowlife is not disgusted. And even you yourself, at one point, you weren't disgusted. So you see that you grew. That's what's going to happen. He's going to start to grow. And he's going to start to say, like he said now, all of a sudden they bring up a conversation. I wish I could believe in God, but how can I believe in God? I'd say, it would be much easier for me if I believed in God, but I don't believe in God. You know, and that's why the atheists that are out there, the Jewish kids who go off the derech, and the atheists are more busy with God that they don't believe in than we are. I met the kid, I said, he doesn't exist, right? Okay, la zupsha, and just leave it alone. Write about something else. I said, you spend 20 hours a day, every waking moment, writing there's no God, there's no God, there's no God. You spend a lot of time on something that doesn't exist. Why don't we move on? Why don't we talk about something else? He can't. There's no God, there's no God, there's no God. Because they know and they feel and they're fighting it, and and with the right love and nurturing, they're going to be able to start to embrace this God. Unfortunately, a lot of them went through childhood sexual abuse, childhood different traumas, and therefore they say there can't be a God because there is no explanation for what happened to me. Kid told me himself. He said, I'm supposed to act like Hashem, right? It's hard to hear. And I had to hear this. It was very hard for me. I was like, whoa. Oy lo aznayim shekach shamu. But I had to hear his pain. He's giving out his pain. You have to listen. He said, I'm just going to go grab an 8-year-old off the bus, take him to an alley, break his bones, smack him up, with a baseball bat, leave him there to bleed to death. That's what God did to me. We can't judge. We say like, oh, don't talk like that. They have a very real connection to Hashem. And it's made from pain. One kid told, before the parents came here, they weren't trained, they didn't know what to say. And they said, like, how could you be Michal Shabbos? The kid said, don't worry about me and God. We go back a long way. And he started with me first. Okay? Yeah, a kid has nightmares the whole time and is traumatized and needs to watch something in order to... We can't judge them. We can't judge them. If you want to judge them, I want to create a serum. Is that what it's called? A serum, right? And I'll inject you with 5 minutes of the pain that the kid goes through. And let's see how you do on Shabbos. Let's see how you do on Yom Kippur. Let's see how you do when you can't fall asleep and you're on that pillow for 4 hours, 5 hours, and it becomes hard and you feel like you're trapped and you're having nightmares and you're going out of your mind. And then all of a sudden, so you watch a movie so you can breathe, right? And then all of a sudden, oh, Michal Shabbos. Let's see how you do with their pain. They're suffering terribly. The kids that I know, I've never really met a kid that after you peel through the layers that you don't come to somebody who went through a lot of pain. And the ones who are in the most pain are the ones who are atheists. And in a way, they're protecting God's covet because they're saying he can't exist. If he exists, I don't want to say the words that they use. He's a sick person. It was sick. Because they can't make sense of it. And even those kids who we respect them because until you go through the Holocaust, you can't talk like that. But you can't go to someone who went through a Holocaust and say, how could you talk like that? We wouldn't last, wouldn't last 1 day in Auschwitz. 5 a.m., you got to get out of bed. I'm out. Come on. How are you supposed to, no shoes, ice, it's freezing. Where's the heater? Where's the blanket? We couldn't do it without the murder. We couldn't, I mean, how could you go through it? And someone goes through that and the whole family's murdered. You're going to judge them? These kids are going through personal holocausts. And it's not hyperbole, and it's not what it's that for those people who were zeicha to work with these kids in pain, on especially level 4 crisis, and the kids who want to die, and the kids who are very, very angry and rebellious, and that's not their nature. You see your son, the sweetest kid in the world. He's not a rebel here. Oid ma'at ve'ein rebel. Ve'hispainanta el mokaimai ve'einenu. If you're ve'hispainanta el mokaimai, and you really think about where they are, al taden es chavercha, asher degia, l'mkaimai. Ve'hispainanta el mokaimai ve'einenu. There's no Eid Ma'atei in Russia. There's no Rishayim. I haven't met a Geshmak of Russia ever. I'm doing this. I'm looking for this Russia. I've had almost 20 years. I'm looking for this Russia. And every time I find another kid who's a sweetheart and sensitive and caring and hurting and in pain, and stuff happened when they were under 10 years old, usually 6, 5, 7. That's not supposed to happen to Jewish kids. Every phone call I get, you were on the phone, you heard me on the phone with those parents, right? One kid, broken, nabuch, and the angry ones are just, they're frustrated from what happened to them, stuff that's not supposed to happen. I keep on looking. Oid ma'at, you look a little more, ve'ein Russia, like you see, you peel the layers. You think about really where he's coming from, and you'll see that it's gone. They're sweethearts, and they're in a lot of tremendous amount of pain. So now you know the anatomy of growth. Growth is when you have these two things together that create the kusta, the chiyusa, the kernel of life, that causes a person to grow. And before you grow, you have to feel very unsettled and very yucky and very icky inside, because you're disgusted with the way your life is, because your inside heard the baskal, you heard the calling, without you even knowing about it, but that's why the baskal goes out every day. Because we're hearing it, and we ignore it. We don't want to have reception. We change the channel. We lower the volume. We do all kinds of things. We up the volume on our cell phones and blast music so we shouldn't have to hear that little noise. But eventually, every Yiddish neshama is a chelik al-kamimal. It's a receptor. It's an antenna. And eventually, with proper love and affection and not being rejected and not being turned away, like the stuff that you're doing, of course he's going to start to feel more and more uncomfortable. And he's going to start to talk about it more. How this, but this stuff is fake, and all rabbis are molesters. They say all this stuff, whatever. It becomes a conversation. It becomes like you just let him vomit it out. Let him speak it and say, I'm not judging you at all. You know, nobody can judge you. How can anybody judge you? I feel so bad that what you went through, and I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, but we're here now. Can I get a hug? When you see them all worked up and you open your arms and you say, I can really use a hug now. Now the answer that I wrote down for you to answer your son, I had the words that you should tell him when he says, I don't believe in God. And it's wrong, so I crossed it out. So what I wanted you to say was, I wouldn't believe in him either if I went through the pain that you went through. And that's what I thought would be really showing that I really care about you. And that's what I could say to your son. I could say to somebody else's kid. But as a parent, you can't say that. Because he's going to think, so why do you still believe in him? If you know what he did to me, why do you still believe in him? And it is a challenge to our emunah and our bitachon. It's not a simple matter. Baruch Hashem, I never lost a parent. No parent ever went off the derech, since being here. But it's a challenge. Why did God do this to you? It's a part of what you have to go through. So to say hey, I made peace with it and I pray to God, it means that you don't really feel his pain. Because you really felt his pain, you would come to his conclusion. So it's scary. You can't really say to somebody who you're supposed to feel for. As a stranger, I could say, I don't judge you. If I went through what you went through a Holocaust. If I went through what you went through, I also wouldn't believe. I would be worse than you. I don't blame you. I'm not judging you. And that's fine, right? But as a parent, you can't say that because you're supposed to feel his pain, and it should be hard. You should have a struggle. That's an assignment. You should have a struggle because we will never understand why Hashem did this to him, your child who you love so much. We'll never understand it. But you can't just say okay, it's fine, and I'm over it, and that means you're not really feeling his pain. It means that you're not even tapping into your pain. Why did God do this to you? Why did Hashem do this to you? Such wonderful tzaddikim. Why did Hashem do this to you? We'll never know. What I could tell you is watching the parents going through this 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later, you're tzaddikim. You're tzaddikim. You have no Gehenim to worry about. You're going straight to Gan Eden. and your midas are unbelievable, and you become this, yeah, but it's still very painful to watch. And it's it's like going to the gym. It's painful. It's the only way to build muscle, right? So Hashem is giving this yainus to parents. I mean, we can't compare it to Avraham Avinu, but it's very, very tough. But the parents here are Ayman bin Husayn in being frum and accepting the pain and their children's pain and working on themselves, working on yourselves to be mamish going in the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. And then that's really what changes for the whole family. Because if you become a loving being, you're like that to everybody. And then that's why your granddaughter said to you, Bobby, I want to be like you when I grow up. Then you become and then eventually, when they're able to, they'll say, what makes you so special? Oh, it's that religion you have. You see, as opposed to the people saying, I will never ever be frum, because that's what makes that person so hateful. People throw their kids out in the name of religion. So the kids and the friends and everybody else says, I will never ever be like that. Look so the question I have to you is, what does your religious values do for you? Does it make you an angry person, kill the infidel? Or does it make you an incredibly loving soul, like all the tzaddikim are? Litvish, Hasidish, doesn't matter. Right? Like an incredibly loving being that looks at everybody with rachamim, and looks at everybody with Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, and doesn't get angry and says it's okay, and it's bashert. And what does it do for us? What does it do for us? And we finish a mincha, we finish a marav, talking to Hashem. Are we calm? If I come back with my problem after davening, then I just spent 10 minutes with my with the manager. Why am I should be calm. When a person shows the children, I went to daven, now I'm calm, I spoke to Hashem, it's going to be fine. Instead of saying, like, when they have problems, we tell them gamze yavar, or we tell them everything's for the good. That's a v'yanim suris. For somebody else about your problem, you're freaking out. You tell them, I was a little nervous. I went and I said to Hillel, I calmed down, I spoke to Hashem, and everything is l'taiva. Wow. That's you have something that I want. What's everybody in the world looking for? Serenity. Serenity now. That's what everybody's looking for. And you have it. And as they mature, they're going to say, what is it that you have that you're so calm? Because they go looking for Buddha. They go looking for massage, for yoga. They're looking for serenity and calmness. And unfortunately, from people are a little bit slightly on the anxiety side. Shtickle, OCD, anxiety, and a couple other stuff. So that's what they see. They say, this is crazy. You lost your sanity over this. You crazy people. This is bad, this is bad, this is bad. You're going crazy, So we have to bake in a zen. That's a yogi word, right? Yeah. A zen of calm, and I am with Hashem. Ki imcha mekar chayim. Like the Nesiv Shalom says, Al Yidei Yehudi, that we feel imcha, Hashem is holding my hand, mekar chayim, I'm connected to the source of life. And all of these feelings, we have to live that, so they say, wow, when I grow up, I want to be like you.